I was really excited about this, Minjay, for a lot of reasons. Number one, I think there isn't a person in this room that isn't on your platform. So that's super exciting.
If you're not, I highly encourage you to join LinkedIn.
And secondarily, when I dream about at night what kind of hair I would have, there we go. So,
wow. Thank you, Todd.
So I heard some really funny questions today, some really good ones to liven it up and get the crowd going. So you come out here, you got your super style. What's your come on song? What's the song that we play as you walk up on stage?
Yes. This is an easy question only because I just did it at our team offsite. So I'm cheating a little bit, but Japanese Breakfast has like so many like upbeat songs. She's like Korean. So there's a Korean version of her songs. So those are like my jam.
All right, I love it.
And it like syncs exactly to your beat. Try it, like when you're walking at home.
So when you're walking out?
Yes,
all right,
yeah,
awesome.
Yep.
So when you hit your grand slam and walk off the stage,
yes,
I got you.
Yeah.
So listen, the other reason why I was really excited is because you are an incredibly established marketer. So much so that Forbes named you last year, I want to get it right, the most influential CMO, a disruptive marketer. So, yeah, exactly. So I wanted to dig in on that and really understand from your perspective, what is a disruptive marketer? How do you define that? What makes, the disruption?
Thank you for the acknowledgement. I think in some ways, my relationship as a marketer and my job in my industry goes way back. And I think only recently I've had the time to reflect on this, which is I moved from Korea to Canada when I was 13. Some of you might have heard this story before, but being an immigrant and being dropped into like a whole new culture and having that experience early on taught me a lot about like how to listen for signals and cues, right? Like, how do you dress? Like, what is cool? Who are the cool kids? And so in some ways, I would say the first half of my life has been a lot of like disappearing into the background to observe what other people are doing so I can like copy and mirror them and then be a part of their community. And then the last half of my life has been, now that I feel I've got a foundation of how this works, who am I? And how do I show up? And that wasn't necessarily exactly to the playbook of like how you're supposed to show up clearly. So even in my work, I think I've chosen a path where I usually go work at companies or industries or functions where they need someone to come and change things up. And I wasn't always that person who felt comfortable not only change managing, but actually creating change and driving change. But now, at least at this juncture of my life, I feel like that's my jam. And therefore, the disruption that you're talking about to me feels almost natural. And it's not like, you're overly engineering change for the change's sake, but I've been fortunate enough to be part of businesses where they seek change. They're wanting someone to come in and help create new perspectives, new ways of thinking about things, new ways of doing the business. So to me, that's kind of where it starts. Yeah, well, I don't think you're going to be out of a job anytime soon. Considering all the disruption and change that goes on in the marketplace today. So, I mean, listen, the name of the game today is adaptation, especially with data and measurement and attribution, everything that we've been talking about today. What do you think is the next big disruption? What do you think is the next big thing that we really need to adapt to or for? I was actually just having a conversation about this afternoon. I'm really interested in how our interaction with our devices change. Meaning, in my marketing career, so I started out as a film school grad, went into marketing because I love storytelling and can I make money from this? And so my career has always been with companies or businesses where, again, we are trying to create communities, early days of social media agencies, before influencer marketing was called influencer marketing. And so riding on that for the past 10 plus years, the surfaces and right channels through which you experience that became social networks and social media platforms. And so now that we are here where it has matured to a certain stage where it's actually a bit of an existential question, right? Like, what role does this have? How has this play an influence in people's lives? I'm thinking a lot about, do the kinds of things that we are currently dreaming about or are kind of really early, it hasn't been adopted to like mass audiences like AR, VR, like it's still not at a stage where it's clear to me that that's going to be the next kinds of interaction and experiences. And therefore, like, right, a lot of us in the room, once we figure it out, is going to be like, how do we make money off of that? But before we get there, it's usually the ones that take off are usually coming with like some level of organic interest and passion and engagement from regular people. So I'm curious about like what that's going to be, having seen it go from like message boards and blogs to, you know, social networks, and now what's next?
Sure. So you brought it up, so I've got to dig into it. An unorthodox entryway into marketing, having gone to film school. So I got to ask the question, favorite movie?
That is a really unfair question to ask of a film school grad.
Exactly.
Okay. My fellow film school grads will be really ashamed of me for saying this, but I go between like really esoteric. There's this Iranian film called The Separation a few years ago. It literally has no soundtrack. It's just about your marriage and your relationship, people in your life, your dialogue, ambience, noise. Like it's all the things that like how life is, right? But put into a screen in a way that lets you in on the discomfort of silence and discomfort of the interactions. And I just remember, and at the time I was working at YouTube, I just remember watching that and feeling like, wow, like I forgot what it's like to not care about life at 6-second increments and like, you know, the credits rolling in and then you just get drawn into the story. So I love those kinds of movies. And then on the other hand, my other jam is natural disaster genres.
All right.
Yes.
See, this just goes to show you how ignorant I am. It's Goonies. So there you go. Sloth Loves Chunk.
Never goes out.
Exactly. So, you know, with your film background, obviously a big portion of your job is storytelling. And I want to dig into the creativity piece of what you do and how you tell those stories, and really dig into the understanding of how do you tell a story and also concentrate on what the outcomes are of that story. So talk to me about how you think about that and how you plan for the storytelling versus the outcomes.
Yeah. So this is a topic that I'm talking to my team quite a bit about. So as you can see in my title, I have 3 different teams that are generally looking after both the member and customer side of the business. Everything from insights to the product marketing team that builds the experience into our product, and then the brand team who's telling the story and building the relationship with our members and customers. But every part of the team, I think we can do a better job being better storytellers. And what I mean by that is when we are doing this, we are telling stories to each other of our lives. When you're in a meeting and you're trying to propose a new idea or try to convince somebody of a new idea, you're also telling a story to help somebody see things from your perspective. And so every interaction in some ways, and yes, I am biased because I'm a film school grad, is an opportunity to tell stories. And these days, especially, you know, with a lot of the topics that we've been talking about in the world in which we are living, we tell stories to make sense of our world. Like, how am I actually experiencing what I'm experiencing? What is going on, my observation? Being able to talk about that with somebody and trying to like ground your realities is also a storytelling mechanism. So all that to say, we as a team are thinking a lot about outcome, to your point, over output. So can you actually tell stories in a way that is ultimately about your relationship with somebody, whether it's your customer, your member, your internal stakeholders, in a way that helps them see things and connect with what it is that you're trying to share with them. And therefore, how does that actually serve a role in your ultimate goal that is the outcome, in the business outcome? So to give you an example, we are focused a lot as a LinkedIn brand on the metric of belonging. So yes, we measure awareness and we measure different types of perceptions at the products and services level. We have, as you know, different portfolios of businesses. But at the brand level, one thing that we are constantly measuring and trying to make a difference in is looking at all of the different types of people who are already members versus people that we want to be members, people who are customers. How do they feel about their sense of belonging when they're on LinkedIn or when they think about LinkedIn? Because one, it makes sense, right? Like logically, when you do feel like there's a place for you somewhere, you are more likely going to give something of yourself and spend the time and build the relationships and so forth. So it's literally the foundational metric to see, are we able to actually talk to a lot of different people and be able to build relationship with them? The second piece is about actual product metrics. So when we have seen that we are increasing that sense of belonging with certain groups of people, their likelihood of actually coming to LinkedIn, the app or the website, it increases. So therefore they start to spend more time. So all of this logically maps in a way that when we go out there and show up as brand, the stories that we tell to people, and frankly, a lot of the stories that we tell people are about stories of the people who are inside LinkedIn. It's not just about LinkedIn's story. Are we able to create openings and an invitation for a lot more people who could benefit from also being at LinkedIn?
I love that. So you have a room filled with users. These are your customers right here. Knowing that you are, and I don't want to call it one of the owners of the platform, but certainly one of the influencers over the platform, what would you invite some of these users to consider as they continue to engage with your platform?
Yeah, great question. So I think most people, and many of you, I assume, are power users. So there's a special group of people who already have spent quite a bit of time. You may be further along in your career journey, so you may have a lot more people in your connections and networks. So there's more resilience and strength built into your experience of how that professional context plays a role in your LinkedIn experience. There are a lot of people out there who do have an account, who come to LinkedIn, but they don't yet have that for a variety of reasons, right? I'm just starting out in my career. I don't maybe know as many people in my industry. I'm switching industries. And I think about the role of the people who have had the benefit of the time and the value that they have seen, and what is it that you can do for somebody else to also make their experience richer, and maybe you can be part of that opening. So ultimately the goal is, yes, we sell things like as LinkedIn, but beyond those transactions of somebody getting a job, somebody finding the right person for the role you're hiring for, the ads that we sell, I would love it if all of you could find ways to find more valuable experiences on LinkedIn in between those transactions, whether it is somebody that you met here today and you're able to actually make a connection, or you are seeing someone share something and you've learned something, so you decide to share that with your network. Or I'm sure all of you have something really interesting and valuable to share from your personal professional experiences, which, by the way, LinkedIn has seen, right? Like that opening of conversations about work changing, because we're all thinking about where we work, how we work, who we are at work, all changed because of the experience of the pandemic and everything that happened. So I would love for all of you to be a part of that, and for that experience to open up doors for more people who may not have the pedigree, who may not have the degrees, who may not already have the connections, but can actually benefit from other people's wisdom because we're a global platform and we have the technology that can scale.
I love it. My mom always taught me it doesn't cost you anything extra to be nice. So that makes total sense.
Evergreen truth.
Yes, and I love that you are tying back what you and your team are working on to the message that you just gave to the audience. So makes sense, totally aligned. You know, as you put these stories together, as you work with your teams on those outcomes, you know, there are stakeholders that you have to sell into. Obviously, the external stakeholders that are the recipient of that story, but then those internal stakeholders. And on the last panel, they talked about the CFO's language versus the CEO's language. So talk to me about the process of how you pitch up and down and sideways and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I think the wonderful thing about so I'm just a year into this job, so like believe maybe some of what I say, but not everything I say. The experience I have had in my first year at LinkedIn was wonderful, and I actually recently wrote about this on LinkedIn. And people have put the trust in me to do what I came here to do, which meant that the conversation I was able to have with my CFO and my CEO and my boss, like it has been about giving ourselves and the focus and the clarity rather than like justification. It's like, yes, we exist to help grow the business now and next. And here's my perspective on how we can do that for the brand, looking at the consumer perspective. We actually have impact on, the numbers that we're driving this quarter, as well as every single member we bring into our platform today will pay off exponentially in their time spent, and therefore how that turns into more vibrant community. So I would say for me, as previous panelists have talked about, like it is about knowing your audience, but at the same time coming to it with the point of view and be able to tell them the story of like why, based on what I have learned about the business, what I have brought to the company from my own experience, makes sense to pursue a certain strategy. And when it comes to, right, like budget, resources, and things like that, that just means how fast can I go?
All right. LinkedIn sits in an incredibly unique position in the world. The global economy is impacted by LinkedIn. And there's a unique responsibility that comes with the opportunity to work with literally almost every single business in the world. Talk to me about how you look at that responsibility, how you consider that responsibility when it comes to some of the adaptations, whether it's the pandemic or working style or some of the other big social issues that have come up in the last few years.
Yeah, I think all of us, right, like having paid attention to what people ultimately want from companies, employers, businesses, there's an increased desire. Yes, there's some more at the generational cut and everything, but I think all of us want a point of view, and all of us want commitments and action as much as the words, right, of the businesses that we see and who we want to do business with. So when it comes to LinkedIn, one of the reasons that I wanted to come work here was seeing LinkedIn try things. Like, we don't have everything, right, figured out either. We are all in this phase together with you. But the awareness and the intent and the desire to actually try new things and figure it out, and perhaps that to be the model or examples to our members, customers, like people who are watching what we do. For example, our hybrid work policy, where we have stated simply but powerfully that we trust you to work from wherever works for you, as long as you get the work done. And that has been such a powerful signal to put that relationship into perspective as an employee and an employer, and therefore what is it that we're able to do. So things like that, I saw the opportunity to not only build and operate inside an organization that is a product that serves, right, like global workforce, but we, as a part of that workforce, using our own product and our own operations, we're trying to figure out like what is the next model for figuring this out together. So I think there's just so many opportunities like that when it comes to what does the future of work look like in more ways than what we're already doing to serve our members and customers through our products and services, in how we show up as an employer, how we could try new things, and ultimately be able to share that with all of you to look forward and not backwards.
Okay, so with all that said, I've met some of your team. They're wonderful people.
What did they say about me? No, I'm just kidding.
When you think about everything that you just delivered, how do you judge, how do you gauge talent? What do you look for when you're filling out a team, knowing, especially today, the market is crazy when it comes to filling roles. So what qualities, characteristics are you looking for?
Yeah. So I think curiosity and courage are two things that are really important right now. And curiosity to in the context of like, I kind of think about the work that we do as choose your own adventure, because there's no right answer. You're never going to have like perfect enough information. So do you let that paralyze your decisions and what you're going to do next? Or do you take the information you do have in your experience as an opportunity to ask yourself the question of like, what do I want to learn next, or what do I need to know next? That becomes, turn to page 46, and then hopefully you will continue that adventure. But it's almost like inertia and indecision is the worst thing that we can do right now, because then we are not going to move, we're not going to learn, the world's going to change around us, and we will just be exactly where we are and left behind probably. So the ability to ask themselves those questions, ask each other those questions, and be able to also create a culture in which curiosity is encouraged, those things are really important to me. Courage, maybe that's a different way to say risk-taking. But to me, maybe courage is a braver way to say risk-taking, because you are putting something out there, right? Like you are trying to do something maybe the team has tried in the past and it actually failed, but it's a different context and a different world now. So you're going to try it again now and see if you come to a different outcome. Or can you actually be the first person to propose an idea, even though it is super scary if you are the first person in the room full of people who are kind of silent or talking about something else. So it's everyday courage. It's not necessarily like you have to do this big thing to be able to be courageous, but I think these days it's the everyday curiosity and everyday courage that really helps make a difference in like where are we going and how can every single person on the team make a difference in our ability to learn and move forward.
Okay, that's great. I love that. Makes total sense. And as a marketer right now who is running a pretty big operation for a really established company, there must be some serious challenges that you face on a daily basis. I'd like to learn more about what those challenges are, the biggest challenges, and where are you currently being brave and courageous?
Yeah. I don't know if you all knew, but LinkedIn's a 20-year-old company. Like we've been around. But at the same time, the exciting thing is that we are only just starting. So there's both the benefit of the scale and the history that got us here, and the fact that we have actually so much headroom. So it's an interesting juncture, not to mention all the macro stuff that we've been talking about all day, but just looking at the business, how do you harness the scale of 850 million global members in 20-year run and think about the next 20 years where you have another 850 million and more looking at the global workforce? So the tension there is we have the scale to be able to grow the way we have for some time, right? But at the same time, because we have that scale, now is the opportunity to actually also think about how else can we grow that is different from how we got here. So how that translates to like inside the operations and what are the potential challenges and opportunities is the change driving, change management, change creation, change driving, where we as a company, by the way, like people love working at LinkedIn. Now that I'm in there, I can see why. and so we have institutional history and knowledge and like guardians of the work that we have done. So how do you make change in a way that doesn't make somebody who built that from ground up feel like my work is no longer valuable, but bring them along in this journey of like, we're all evolving together so that the new voices and new perspectives who have joined the company in the last like 2-3 years and saw the opportunity of what they could contribute to can also come to life. That's kind of the interesting juncture that we are at as a business. Like 40% of our workforce is new since the pandemic started. So I think I see a lot of nodding heads. Like a lot of you probably, have that similar dynamic too at your companies. But it can't be just one or the other part dragging the other group along. But how do you, at this juncture, intentionally create the changes in ways that make strategic sense and can bring the culture along so that there is focus and clarity as to why we are here together as different assortments of people who chose to be at LinkedIn.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to be empowered to raise their hand and share their opinion? And the diversity of experiences, it's something that needs to be celebrated. So yeah, that's great. We only have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that we give time for the audience because you are an incredible speaker. I pulled out my phone because you also happen to be an incredible writer.
Oh, thank you.
And if you have not subscribed to Minjae's newsletter, you absolutely should. It's called Novel and Routine. And I actually want to read a quote that you wrote. It says, "I believe growing as a person requires a conversation too. But that conversation has to involve other people who have seen a version of your future. Their stories are not exactly a blueprint or a manual for you, but they are exactly the kinds of elixirs you need to be able to dream and imagine yourself in ways people, including you, haven't seen you yet." So, first of all, unbelievable. How are you envisioning your future? Who are your conversations with? Who's seeing your future?
If I were to put it bluntly, it's a lot of people who don't look like me, right? Like the future that I want to try my hand at, people who are in those seats don't look like me. That's okay. But that means I need to, I too have connection and growth, right, to be made in ways that help me understand what is it like to be in seats that I've never sat in, that my mom's not going to be able to tell me, my own network is not going to be able to tell me, but I want to get there. And I'm speaking in kind of vague terms because it's not like I have like a job in mind, at a certain company or anything like that, but just one of the things I intentionally wanted to do in this job and choosing LinkedIn was coming back to a global company, managing a big team, starting a new job during a pandemic. Can I actually be a part of that change making and help create the kinds of positives that we gained from the pandemic experience into new habits of the organization so that we can all thrive better as a team? And so far, the answer is yes. Like, I can do it because of the people who are doing this with me. So that's really fun and exciting. So then that makes you think, if you went from 60 people organization to a 200 people organization, can you do it at a further scale and impact and the influence you can potentially have? That's the thing that gets me out of bed every day. And I am, to answer your question, I am doing a lot of thinking about, therefore, who can help me dream that part of the next part of my journey too, which frankly haven't thought about too much because I'm 1 year into my new job and it's super fun, but yeah.
I've thought about my next job,
Yes.
Campaign manager for your congressional election.
Todd, did anyone tell you that I'm Canadian? So
That's all right.
sorry to.
I'll move to Canada. All right. Do we have any time for questions? We do not. Minjae, you have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Don't ever apologize. You've brought brilliance and grace, and we really appreciate you. You are absolutely an inspirational figure in the industry. So keep it up. We're looking forward to that future.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Todd, for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.